Val Garay, and I'm going to take everybody through a drum kit and how I go about balancing it and EQing it and putting it together. This particular project that I'm going to show you was done in Nashville at Blackbird Studios, and the drummer was Victor Indrizzo, and it was for Richie Furet's iconic country record, which comes out sometime this year, probably around August. Basically what I can tell you is you can balance a regular drum kit, analog drum kit, you can balance a programmed drum kit. It doesn't really matter. All these ratios and all these numbers kind of correlate to both. It doesn't really have to be one or the other. Let me mute the monitors to start with. So when I start with the drum set, I usually start with a kick drum, and basically what I've used for, I can't tell you how many years, since I started years ago at the Sound Factory, what I've used, and I've tried every kick drum mic known to man. I use that Sennheiser 421 MD. I've tried them all. Nothing seems to sound better to me than that mic. And the outside mic, I use a Yamaha Subkick, which prior to that, and prior to Yamaha building one, I was using an NS10 speaker that I had built into a frame. And basically the Subkick is just an NS10 speaker built into their own little cool looking little drum, because a speaker is a microphone. What I start with is kick drum, and usually I start with the outside mic, and the outside mic is always a much less ratio than the inside mic. And I balance everything to the Pro Tools rig. I don't move things around much after I've balanced everything. Used to be called to tape. This is now to the drive, but you know, the ratio is kind of the same, and the sound is pretty much, you know, if you put this in the right position, which is about a foot outside the drum, and the Sennheiser I put where the inside of the pop screen is parallel with the outer edge of the drum, dead in the center of the drum, and I don't like to have a head on it. So the kick drum mic, the outside mic, basically if you look at the VU meters, which I will pull up right now, it's usually around a -10 in terms of level. You can see it on those meters where it's hitting, you know, in that zone. When you get to the inside mic, that's usually about a -3. So that you get to that, and that's about where it hits on that. And then when you combine the two microphones, you end up with a 0 level. Which is that. Also, I'll show you the way I've, you know, sort of set up a system of balancing and setting up drum faders to where I like them. And if you look at the way this is in the Pro Tools session, the kick drum, both in and out, are at 0. The snare is at -2, and everything else, hi-hat, tom-toms, and overheads, are at -10. Why there's that ratio, I couldn't tell you. I started doing it that way many years ago, and it seems to work really well. So I sort of stay with that. So now if I mute the kick drum and I open up the snare drum, if you look at the level of the top snare at the chorus, you can see that it's like, you know, -5, -4 in that zone. And if you bring in the bottom snare mic, you'll also see that is like -10. And you combine the two, and you're going to have a 0 level. So that's perfect in terms of the balance. Also, in terms of EQ, what I use, sometimes when I'm roughing out stuff, I'll use a plug-in, unless I'm doing this in a studio, which I did, so I used real API equalizers. But when I brought it back to Los Angeles to my studio and decided what I wanted to do to it, I added more top end to things because they were a little bit dark. And what I use is a Q clone. Q-Clones, it's a plugin that Waves makes. So if you have a piece of hardware, which I have plenty of them over there, and you use a 550A EQ, it makes a impulse response of that. So it sounds pretty much exactly like the hardware. And that's usually what I end up using when I mix stuff too. It's interesting though, because that plugin's been around for a long time.